Welcome back. It's time for day one of San Diego Comic-Con to continue here. All things Skybound. I know there's a lot of people both on social media, on the stream, who are very excited for this little panel that has been put together because we're talking about The Walking Dead Season 3 from Telltale and Skybound. And let me introduce everyone that we got up here on the table. We've got Sean from Skybound. We've got Melissa, who you might know as the voice of Clem. And we have got Dennis and Joe from Telltale. Gentlemen and ladies,
Hey.
how are you today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Are you embracing the craziness as Comic-Con already?
Yeah. It
yeah.
was like preview night last night, and today's like the official kickoff, and it's awesome to be here to kick off Comic-Con with Skybound. So I mean,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
our big foray into comics and partnering with Robert and Skybound way back when in 2012, 2011 was really at Comic-Con, and it's awesome to be back here in 2016 with so much more.
Yeah, it
So-
was 2 years ago, right?
2 years ago? No, like
No.
Last
it's been a
year?
while now, like 5
Yeah.
years.
No, I meant since the announcement of just Season 3.
Oh yeah, it
was
was,
it- 'cause it
2
was
years
here at
ago.
Comic-Con,
Yeah,
right?
season 2 still hadn't finished.
Right.
And everyone was wondering if it was going to continue. So I think it was Kevin Bruner, our co-founder, and Robert were on stage, and they're like, "Yes, there's going to be a third one."
It's like, can't you just wait for
Chaos
2 to
and-
finish?
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I think that got pushed out of him. Yeah.
It wasn't around, but we're back and we're here, and we
Yes.
have things to show you and talk
Yeah.
about.
Great.
And we have Clementine with us.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, and you know, like I want to do a throwback to last year because last year you at Petco Park did
Yeah.
the live reading along with several other cast members. I was there for it. It was awesome.
was
Everyone on stream
amazing.
loved it. But it's great to have you back.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a very cool experience because, you know, as we record the game, we don't get to physically work together in the booth. So to be on stage with that amazing cast of characters and actors was such a cool experience.
Yeah, and as an experience of a fan who knew every single thing that you were, going to do, but still still the same level of impact that you
Right.
got when you played the game.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
It
it
was-
was
it
really
was awesome.
emotional. It was crazy.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. Season 3 is exciting. Everyone on the internet is excited. Everyone's really happy to find out what happens to their favorite characters and what is going to happen. So before we get into details, or what I try to get out in terms of
Lack
details,
thereof.
how exciting is it in sort of where Walking Dead is right now in the comic and the television and of course the Telltale game? How exciting is it to be bringing Season 3 to everyone? That's an open-ended question.
Yeah. Well, you want to go?
I mean, it's time has passed since the end of season 2, and the last time when we first saw Clem, she was around 8 or 9, and into the second season, probably around 10 or 11, pushing on 12. And now we're a couple more years in, closer to where the comics are, Sean, and she's in her early teens, so somewhere between 13 or 14.
Yeah.
I think as time goes on, people kind of are losing track of dates and birthdays, so
Right,
it's not,
right.
It's not
getting
exact,
a little
but
harder to pinpoint.
but no, this next season, and we aren't officially calling it Season 3. It's not in our logo yet. We're still kind of toying around. It might have a slightly different name, but this is our
Okay.
third season.
See, I too am
This is
learning
the
things.
Season
Right.
3 we talked about when we announced it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, and it's timeline-wise, we're working probably more closely with Sean and Skybound and everyone over there, and sort of keeping this sort of extended world outside of the comics and part of the comic universe.
Well, looseness of timeline and age is a proud Walking Dead tradition.
Sure.
We're there with you. Allows us to sync up things nice, but yeah, it is nice to kind of see, because the TV shows are still sort of back. They'll always be behind where the comic is, but it's
Right.
nice to have something that is in that universe that is finally kind of syncing up with where Robert's at. And then, how far the world has moved forward since we last saw Clementine.
Well, and I mean, speaking of Clementine, like we've now kind of grown up with Clementine along with her,
Literally.
and this crazy world that she is now having to be experienced on. So, I mean, Melissa, for you, that has to be, somewhat challenging, but also exciting.
Yeah, I've spent so much time with this character. I mean, I liken it to working on an animated series that goes on for, for a certain amount of years or forever, whatever. But the cool thing is getting to age with her has just been such an amazing experience. I feel so close to that character, and getting back in the booth to record for a season 3 Clem is just. I'm like I'm basically a huge fan of the game as well.
Good.
So I mean, I just I'm really excited for this season 3 Clem and for the fans whom I'm so grateful for because I thankfully get to meet a lot of them. You know, so much support for this character. And
She's actually, when the first time anyone saw Clem was actually in 2011, we released a poster. It was just sort of an art direction sketch, kind of a basic concept of what season 1 was going to be about. And just now we can show it now. We have the poster that we're kind of revealing for Comic-Con 2016 for this 3rd season. If they can throw it up in the stream, we can take a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's is it up?
Yep, there
Oh,
it is.
yes.
Oh, hey, there we go.
There it is.
Yeah.
It looks like a
Awesome.
cover.
It does
Yeah.
look like a
Comic
cover.
a little bit.
We
Yeah.
actually had the original poster hang in the men's room of the old Skybound office, so I feel like we'll probably
the
need to
men's
bless the
room.
new office with an updated poster.
We keep our Big Lebowski poster. And then
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
it's Richard Nixon bowling down the alley.
So you mentioned it's been now 5 years since. Yeah, just since
crazy.
chapter 1, season 1 rather,
Yeah.
the original game. Dennis, how's this journey been for you as well?
well, so it's interesting with, like Melissa was just talking about, kind of growing with Clem over the years. From us on the development side, we've kind of been parenting Clem over the years, so it's weird, like having that sort of kind of like fatherly responsibility with where we're taking her character, and there's lots of everyone internally at the studio is super protective over her too. So
Right.
you know, it's anytime you're looking for drama in a situation, it's easy to throw a walker in and have something horrible happen. And it's funny when the idea gets floated of like, well, maybe Clem takes some horrible damage in this one, and people get like super offensive about it. It's like, come on, man, look, dude, like we got to be careful with what we do to Clementine.
Yeah.
We really care about her. So it's been interesting for us to kind of like grow with her over the years, and it's actually really fun to sort of explore the different sides of her, right? So in the beginning, season 1, you're kind of playing the fatherly figure, trying to keep her safe in this crazy world.
Right.
Season 2, you get to take direct control of her and sort of, you're still kind of have like a fatherly instinct a lot of people have, but they really want to keep her safe. And what's interesting in the new season is we're kind of exploring a different facet of her where we have this playable character, Javier, and you're kind of more of a peer of her. She's grown up in this world. She is totally capable of taking care of herself. The players from season 1 and 2 have got her to that point, and now we get to kind of play, like, basically just be a friend to her. And it's a totally different kind of relationship that you've ever had with Clementine before, so it's super exciting.
And we've got so this is the first screen that we saw when the announcement happened.
Yeah,
this
oh, yeah,
one right
so
here,
that's
which
from-
immediately we see, we definitely, Clem is looking a little bit older.
Yeah.
And we saw the first look of Javier. And of course, then everyone had a million questions about Javier, but exciting to hear that the 2 playable characters is going to be a part of this. I mean, I thought it was pretty interesting in season 2 with the focus on Clem, but there were still some decisions that happened at the end that weren't necessarily Clem's decision, but had major effect on the game.
Right.
So my question is, how much more difficult is it to add in the player character? I mean, you guys have experience with this in Tales from the Borderlands, and I believe Game of Thrones also. So does it make it a little bit harder in terms of the choice trees that can happen, in terms of what you might do and how the decisions might affect the game? Like, how is it exciting, or is there a layer of difficulty? It's like, wow,
It's both. It's definitely, there's times where you have the really cool idea that works perfectly for the situation you need, and you're like, oh man, I'm really glad we're doing this. And then there's all the other times where you're like, here's a great moment, we can't do that for these reasons.
Right.
So it's similar with Borderlands had the same kind of struggle, and it kind of makes you go through 100 ideas to find the one that really works. So it's just more of a labor process doing it. But then at the end, once you look back on it, it just feels natural. And it's like, of course you would do that in that moment. That makes sense. But at the time, it's frustrating.
Excellent.
The other thing too is just we still haven't said a lot about Javier, and we can't stress this enough that he's really central to this story. You're going to be playing as both Javi and Clem. You may not be playing as both characters in the same frame of time.
Right. Okay.
If I can say that without saying anything more. I think we have another screenshot we can cut to with Javi and Clem. Maybe.
Another screenshot that you
Actually,
brought
it's the
us?
first time anyone will have ever seen. No, well, that's Clem and AJ.
Oh, who's that? Oh.
Let's cut back to Clem and AJ. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's. You want to talk about AJ a little bit?
Yeah, I mean,
go
with
ahead.
one of the things that we're really interested with the new season is kind of making a story that feels really relevant to where the books are now, and someone who is a fan of the books or the show can come in and enjoy it and kind of get to know Clementine in a different aspect than people who come in with season 1 and season 2 knowledge. So, like Job's saying, Javier's super integral to this story, and it's kind of a whole new story with Clem as a piece of it. And so, obviously, we're honoring what people have done in season 1 and season 2 because that's super important to us at Telltale. It's
Right.
if you played those seasons, this is a continuation for you. It feels like that. And AJ is one of the kind of things left over from the end, who is Rebecca's son,
My
who
heart.
we kind of left.
Again, I'm a big fan.
Who we sort of left Clem in this precarious situation of being the only person left to care for her, So, yeah, here, we get to explore what he's like, a little bit older, kind of like learning to become a little human, and kind of how Clem deals with that, and how that plays into other people who are just trying to survive. And maybe this is kind of, some people think it's an opportunity for the future, and other people think it's just an annoyance in the present, and it just kind of creates all this drama, which is great for us.
So something that you said there, and whether you can answer this, I don't know. But and I got to be careful with spoilers here because there's probably
Story over lives.
2 or 3
Yeah.
people that maybe haven't played yet. But there were like 2 very polarizing decisions that happened at the end
Oh,
of
yeah.
season 2.
Yeah.
So, if what you just said, my direct decisions will affect how the story might begin or how things are referenced then?
Yeah, there were 2 maybe strongly polarized on the web with fans, but there were multiple ways that could have gone.
Right. And I
could've-
remember my decision having 16% shared with it, and I was like, wow, because I
it's-
couldn't imagine any other way
Right.
for this to end,
Right.
right? So I couldn't believe that there were this 84 that did not experience it the
So-
way that I had
I
experienced
know what
it.
you did.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was playing with my son, and it was like
I
super
think we watched that
intense,
one, too, with
emotional.
Mini League,
Yeah,
yeah.
intense.
The thing about that too is, everyone, if you have played the previous 2 seasons, there is going to be a tailored story that is going to continue on, and you're going to understand what happened at the end of your story, and really, it's on us to bridge that gap between the previous season and this one. And more often than not, you're going to be learning about what happened as Javier is learning about Clem.
Okay.
And we can cut to one more from Javier, that one of 2 of them in the slaughterhouse, I think.
Yeah, one more.
Yeah, so they're a large portion of this story, they're together. Definitely in the first episode, we can say. And I think, oh yeah, Clem's got all of her fingers in this one. Yeah, when we released that teaser, she was missing one of her digits. And that also may or may not rest on one of the decisions that you make, so it's not on us. It's on you guys. But playing as Javier and sort of learning about this person that either the player knows already or is completely foreign to and is just coming into the series is kind of really the dynamic that we're setting up, and really just allows the player from any background to really explore where we're going here. So, and what are they? I don't know what we can say about the environment they're in right now, but
It's
Yeah,
an
I mean,
definitely
interesting
full of
environment.
walkers.
One thing that's interesting that we've been really trying to experiment with is, we're multiple years post-outbreak, and obviously groups of survivors have come together, and there's a lot of good people who are trying to do good things, but there's also other people who are doing, different levels of gray area things, and maybe they have good intentions, maybe they don't, but really kind of trying to take the world at that far in. What are people trying to do? And that's a lot of stuff that's actually really fun for us, working with Sean and Robert and saying, hey, we had this idea of kind of what we think might be happening at this time in this area, and they're really good at coming back with this fits totally, and that actually doesn't really work as well, but this is really cool, and we hadn't really talked about that before, so that's really cool. You should run with that.
I mean, because where we're at in the comics and where the video game is that society is hasn't started rebuilding itself, but certain processes are up, and it's
Sure.
more normal than it has been since the outbreak. you
A
know,
bit more
Robert-
organization.
Oh
right?
yeah, I mean definitely with factions and towns and defenses, and people know how to survive and keep themselves going. They know how to gather supplies and food and social niceties maybe still
Being established, we could just say. People have different opinions.
But yeah, I mean, it's great to have like these new voices go, hey, this is how we see it, and then Robert goes, never thought of that, or this is what I'm planning, so let's kind of stay away from that. So it's going to be a completely different experience of how society's building than you're going to see in the comic book.
So then, to kind of play off of that a little bit, in season 1 we saw Glenn and Herschel make sort of cameos in the first game. The second game, not so much. Is there any potential tie-in as we get closer, or are those at least options that you would explore?
We've explored them, yeah, for sure.
We are.
Yeah.
I think people were trying to figure out where we were based on the teaser trailer, and I think we can say that the migration from Georgia in season 1 to kind of the Carolinas
Right.
in season 2, we're now kind of right in that Virginia zone. So getting real close to where some of these
Sure.
characters are in the comics, and I shouldn't say anything else. So, but yeah, we're
It's
working pretty
it's
close.
fun. I mean, in the comic between 126 and 127, we had a huge undefined time gap.
Right.
So a lot of stuff kind of happens, and then that's actually where the Michonne story came into play. So we
Right.
played with continuity in there. That was and now we're looking at how this fits in and where that can fit with that. So yeah, it's not quite present day in the comic, but it's not far behind. So it's interesting to see what kind of smart connections we can make without bringing the whole cast over. What makes sense for the story that we're telling.
And going back to the time jump a little bit, and this, Melissa, talked to you about this, because in season 1, it's sort of, Lee was the protector. Clem certainly was not totally capable of handling herself, but in
Right.
season 2, we definitely saw how the world was affecting her, and maybe kind of had a father figure sort of in. You could maybe depend on how you look at it.
Out of perspective, my
right.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so far in everything we've seen, I feel like Clem is like the more independent character than she ever was. Is that kind of how you feel?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like that really started in season 2. I mean, it was a great cast of characters. It was amazingly written. And there were a few characters, obviously, that had the potential to be like, we're going to go to the end, and we're going to, but she was already needing to, basically, there was a lot of points in the game where she was surrounded by a bunch of, like, I don't want to say idiots. I'm not trying, but you know what I mean? Like, oh, God, people, come on. Like, she
He's
was
from Florida. Stupid shit
Yeah.
just comes out of his mouth.
So, I mean, she definitely, just the change from season 1 to season 2, and then I think into season 3, it's been very organic, and Clementine is just totally set up to be this amazing, independent character that can carry the game
I think,
and keep living forever
one
and
of
ever.
the contrasts as well is like she's been so far removed from family for years, and is kind of struggling to kind of find some semblance
Something,
of that
yeah.
or something. And Javier, there's one more screen we can cut to of Javier. If you got that, he's got his own family as well, and he's kind of trying to maintain what so many have lost and kind of are just whisked away so quickly. For some, they were gone years and years ago during the outbreak, and you're going to be exploring more of his own family and sort of his own struggles to keep them together as well. So.
Can we talk a little bit, this screenshot especially, I mean, watching the visuals evolve sort of over the 3 seasons as well, this to me speaks of a lot more detail than I feel like we've seen in the past. Can you talk at all about sort of changes in what has been made to that in this particular season?
I mean, so we're always kind of working on upgrading the engine and trying to find different looks for different series. And with Walking Dead, one of the things that's been interesting is it's so consistent. We'll go do in like a Wolf Among Us, and obviously we have a Batman game coming out, all sorts of different things that kind of require different art styles. And with Walking Dead, we've really been able to just kind of take one thing and just continually talk about how we can perfect it.
Sure.
So even in season 2, there was lots of kind of wish list items of here's what I wish we could get into the game. Wouldn't it be great if we could kind of push things this way? And so we've always got a team of people who are just slowly working towards that vision, and we're super happy with where Season 3 is kind of landing, where like, you know, stuff is looking super detailed. We're getting a lot of great performance out of the characters. So we already have great voices. Now we're able to do, you know, even more justice to those with facial performance and the animation. And yeah, just from kind of art style, you know, we're sort of taking the broad strokes of the comic we started with and really just kind of diving into the details, but kind of retaining that initial flavor.
Which more like refined, like
yeah.
you guys are kind of perfecting.
For sure.
Yeah.
What we set out to do was really just, if you look at the first 2 seasons, the art direction was really kind of intended to make it look like the pages of the comic
Sure,
come to
yeah.
life. And now that we've sort of, you know, have a lot more tech under the hood, some great new artists coming in, and just an amazing team, props to them. It's less about making the pages come to life and more about making the cover of the comic come to life. So more detail, more color, just more everything. So it's come a long way.
So we kind of danced around it a little bit, but I feel like maybe Chad and some other folks would be mad at me if I didn't at least talk about it. But
Let's do it.
Kenny.
Oh, man.
Kenny.
You know, one of my favorites, and definitely it kind of, like I said, some polarizing decisions make it go either way. But you know, people want to know, like, are we going to see him? What's happened with Kenny? Where is Kenny's chapter? What? I'm sure this is an unanswerable question.
I guess my question is, why do you like Kenny so much?
So, interestingly enough, like, I don't know if I was the biggest fan of Kenny in the first season.
Sure, yeah.
But for me personally, and this is what I love about these games too, is that your own personal experiences very heavily weigh into the decisions that you make. You know, father to a 10-year-old, Kenny definitely puts himself into a father's role, whether other people like that or not in season 2. And I related to that really
I get that.
well. So for me, it's like, well, yeah, he's the dad that everyone maybe doesn't want, but you know, probably needs, right? So I don't know. That's about as close as I can
No,
come,
I
Sean.
can see that. I mean, I'm a new father, and how I interact with storytelling and other media is like completely changed, especially when children are involved. So I mean, when I played through season 1 and 2, I was not. So I just, you know, he wasn't my cup of tea.
Right, right.
So you.
yeah,
Well,
I'm
I don't want to.
not worried
I can't
I'm not
spoil.
worried about Kenny's fate.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there, Karen, and of course everyone has their favorites and always is asking, well, what happened to this? Are we ever going to find out
Sure,
that? So if you want to tell me just wait, then I can.
Well, it's also conditional based on the ending you came away from with season 2.
Okay.
Because there's actually a pretty broad range.
There's a lot of
things
even
that can happen
nuance to
different
how,
characters.
like, if Kenny didn't make it from season 2, if you're watching this and you haven't played season 2, come on.
He just did it for you.
Yeah.
If
Floodgates open.
if he didn't make it, there's a couple different subtle ways, important ways that he may have not made it. And you may have pulled a trigger, or you may not have pulled a trigger, and he could still not have made it. Or he could have brought you somewhere, or you could have gone with him, even if you tried. There's a lot of subtlety to that relationship on the Kenny side and also the James side, and also, even more importantly, on Clementine's own independent, taking her own path side. And, you know, we're writing for all of that. There's story for all different paths and all different options. But it's going to be bridged in a way that I think is surprising and unique. And should we say anything more? We're going to have to put our foot in our mouth.
Perfect, because we only have time for about 1 or 2 questions, and this one actually came from social media, but a discussion or just a quick talk of favorite moments in the 2 seasons, and even beyond, right? Because we've got Michonne, we've got 401 Days. Any like your most memorable moments that?
For me personally,
Yeah.
there's 2 tops. There's 2 tops in the tops. I mean, there's so many great moments.
There are.
End of season 1. I won't spoil it, but to be able to,
It didn't work out.
things didn't work out as well as they should have. To be as a voice actor, to get to work on a project, and I've worked a lot with Telltale Games, but this is the first super emotional. Like the writing was so intense and so well done that within the seasons it was just built up to this. The 5th and final episode of season 1 was insanely emotional and so sad.
Did you know?
I found out episode 3, and that's when Dave
how
Benoit
hard did
and
you
myself
fight to
met.
say no?
I was.
No.
It was. I mean, it's funny because the day that we found out, that's the day I met Dave Benoit because he was coming out of the recording session, and we were just like, oh god. So that was an incredible experience for both of us, Dave and I, and then the next for the next. That was cool. I'm like rapping all of a sudden. Is season 2 when she comes out of the shed with the still not bitten was this moment of like, oh hell yeah, she's like super badass. Like this is our Clem. This is why she's a playable character. Awesomeness. That's me. You guys?
Excellent.
Dennis?
It's hard to top that.
Dennis?
For me, it's weird because I kind of come at it from like a fan of what we're doing as well as the development side.
Sure.
So for me, one of the most things that things that most interesting of working on this game was kind of having a hand in creating these characters that you think people are going to react one way and then they don't. And then our game is about choice, right? So you get to give people a choice that sometimes you think, you know, everyone's going to pick this. Like this is, we all agree internally, this is kind of the thing that we're trying to balance the choice around. And then it comes out 100% different than you thought from just watching people's reactions online
cool.
or the stat screen
So
at the
cool.
end that just shows you, you know, and it's like you were saying with your ending
Yeah.
that you got for season 2. It's like that's how it had to end,
Right.
and then you see you're like 84% of people didn't
Like,
see
right,
that. Like
yeah.
what?
Really?
There's
Who
no
are
way.
these
Like that's what it
people?
is.
Does this affect your view
You
of
know.
humanity?
I was
Is
with
it
you
like a
in-
lesson or,
Well,
know,
and so
like-
what's weird was like for me it was in episode 2 of season 1. There's like a moment where you have limited food and you have to choose who you give that to. And after we did episode 1, we had this character named Larry who everybody hated, and the internet was basically just like, you know, we're gonna do horrible things to you guys if you don't give me an option to kill this guy because I hate him so much. And then in that sequence, one of the people you can offer food to in episode 2 is Larry. And there's also like the kids who need it.
Yeah.
And we thought no one was going to give it to
Larry
Larry.
the
He was the
dad?
bigger, older
Yeah.
guy, like Lily's dad. Yeah.
The salt. Yeah,
Yep,
that was
there you
actually
go.
one of my, because it was like, oh, they mean business. In
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
yeah.
Like,
It's like, oh, man.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
Walking Dead. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like in
it's
that
horrible.
in example, like we got the, you know, we're able to see what people are choosing, not just from the stat screen, but we collect all the data, and it's super important for us internally to kind of know where people's heads are at and how we're going to plan certain, you know, moments in future episodes based on what we know, what people are reacting to. And a lot of people gave Larry food, and we were like stunned.
People
Like we had a
named Larry
meeting.
gave Larry food.
Yeah, yeah.
All the Larrys
And
came
we started
together
just
and-
asking fans on forums and whatnot. And we're just like, why? Everybody hates this person. Why'd you give him food? And they were like, well, you know, I thought maybe he would like me if I gave him food, and then we could like repair that relationship. And I was like, man, like usually in a game you just want to kill everybody, right?
Yeah,
So
interesting.
that was big.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a moment in this first episode of the 3rd season. I'm not going to spoil, but I was fortunate enough to be the first. I was the first person to play it when we played the episode.
You are
No, no,
so
no, no,
unfair.
no,
I
I
can't.
got
You're
it.
going to tell
I'm gonna give you a good
everyone.
Why
one.
would you even bring that up?
But it,
No,
just,
it's
it
fine.
completely gutted me. I knew it was coming, and when it happened, I just wanted to throw the controller across the screening room and just yell at the team and walk out the room. But it happened,
Awesome.
and it was. You'll know soon enough. Another moment that doesn't get enough. Not a lot of people know about this. Season 1, episode 3, Long Road Ahead. There's sort of an Easter egg scene that we refer to internally as the Duck Apocalypse. And it's when Duck is bitten and everyone's on the train and Lee's got to figure out everything before the train's got to stop
Right.
and the thing's got to happen. But if you let that time out, there's actually a scene where Duck turns into a walker.
Right.
And actually attacks everyone on the train, and it's game over.
What?
And that's one of my favorite scenes that no one knows
I did
about.
not know
That's
about
awesome.
this. I should know about
Well,
this.
now you know about it.
I wish that we had another 30 minutes or so up here, but we have to wrap up.
cool.
I want to say thank you to everyone here on the
Thank you.
panel.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks. Great to
Dennis
be
and
here.
Joe. Thank you guys so much. We look forward to performance in season 3, the game being released, and you know, all the future work that we see on the Walking Dead universe. So thank you again. We're live here at day 1 of San Diego Comic-Con. We're at the Sparks Gallery celebrating all things Skybound. And we are going to be back with an interview with Robert Kirkman coming up next. Don't go away. We'll be right back.